Hello everyone, today we're looking at the end of the Second World War and how the end of World War II will later lead into the events of the Cold War. Now, your starter today is to write down what you know about the end of World War II and how it came to its conclusion. Many of us will have seen World War II films. They always focus on the battles and the events of the war and not often on the conclusion of how the war came to an end. You can use the image on the right-hand side to help you if any of these men are particularly familiar to you, but if not, just take a moment now to pause the video and write down a few ideas about how you think World War II came to an end. When you're finished, hit play, and we'll be going through a few of the possible answers together. So how did World War II come to an end? Well, to be able to answer this, we need to know what happened in the Second World War in the first place. So we know that Germany and the Soviet Union signed an agreement in late 1939 and agreed not to attack each other in the event of war. Now, they made this agreement because they both knew they wanted to invade Poland from opposite sides and split the country down the middle for each of them to take parts of the land. In September of 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany after the invasion of Poland, who Britain promised to back up in the event of a war. And not a whole lot of fighting is going to happen until late 1940, late 1941. Britain was having a difficult time actually getting into Europe to fight the Nazis. Remember, to be able to fight your opponent, you have to actually meet them face to face. And Britain couldn't even get into Europe because the Nazis had built such a strong fortification known as the Atlantic Wall all along the northern coast of France. Now, on the 7th of December 1941, the USA is going to join World War II after they're attacked by the Japanese at the port of Pearl Harbor. And in the summer of 1942, Germany decides to invade the USSR at the Battle of Stalingrad, breaking its initial agreement with the Soviet Union not to attack them. Now, the USSR, they've been attacked by Germany, so they're going to swap sides, join up with Britain and the USA to defeat the Nazis. Now, if we remember back to our previous units, especially when we looked at McCarthyism and the Cold War, we know that America at this time was incredibly afraid of communism. And we can't forget that at this time, the Soviet Union is a communist country. So we have some very unlikely allies between the USSR and the USA. Politically, they have completely opposing ideas, but they're going to work together to defeat Germany. The following winter in late 1942-1943 is among the worst on record, and it stalls the German advance. Roughly 2.5 million soldiers on both sides will die before the Battle of Stalingrad is over, and it will result in a German loss and a Soviet victory. Now, the USA and the USSR will continue to work together to fight Germany, but after Germany is defeated, they'll both realize that they never really were friends in the first place, but they fought on the same side because they both hated Germany, not because they liked each other. Now, there's an ancient proverb, it's about 2,500 years old, and it says, "My enemy of my enemy is my friend." Essentially, the USA and USSR, they both don't like each other, but they both hate Germany more. So they're willing to team up together to defeat Germany, and they'll sort out their own problems after their enemy is gone. So going back to our starter, the faces of some of these men should be very familiar to us by now. They're also in many of the classrooms at the very front of the board. So we've got number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead and pause the video and just match up the names to the pictures of any of the men that you know and try to finish off the rest by a process of elimination. When you're finished, go ahead and hit play and we'll take them up together. So you've had a chance to match up some of the names. So number 1, of course, is Harry Truman, founder of the Truman Doctrine, also known as containment, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. Number 2 has to be Franklin D. Roosevelt. Number 3 is Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. And of course, 5-pound note, Mr. Winston Churchill of the UK. So we've also got some key words to look at. So we have Cold War, capitalism, communism, and socialism. So again, pause the video, answer the ones that you know, and then play the video to take up the remainder. And of course, you can pause it once all the definitions are up and make sure that they're down in your note. So let's have a look at taking these up together. So Cold War. This is a state of hostility and warfare between the USA and Russia, also known as the Soviet Union, also known as the USSR. And it lasted from about 1945 until 1990. And there wasn't any actual direct fighting. It was called the Cold War because it never heated up into an actual war. Capitalism, private ownership of the means of production. So we live in a capitalist society. If you would like to make a business, you can go ahead and get an Instagram page, and you can get a loan from the government, and you can create your own business for your own profits. Communism is very different. It's where the state or the government owns the means of production. So yes, you can make a business, but you won't be the owner in that business. The government would own it instead of you. In socialism, the belief that society should own the means of production, and that's more what the Nazis believed in. So we can see USA is capitalist, Soviet Union is communist, and the Nazis were socialist. So a couple things to put in our books. What is a superpower? Well, a superpower is a term used to describe the most powerful countries in the world. Right now, the USA, China, these are considered to be the world's superpowers. But after World War II, there was a difference in the superpowers that we see today. Britain, France, and Germany, they were among the superpowers before the year 1945. And after World War II, Britain, France, and the USSR are going to emerge as the ultimate superpowers in Europe. So the events that led to the Cold War, you can go ahead and finish these off in your books just by writing out the statement and filling in the blank. If you're not sure what would go in the blank, don't worry, still write the statement down and you can fill it in a few moments when we take these up. So again, go ahead, pause the video now, write down these three statements, leave the blanks blank, and fill them in to the best of your ability, and we'll take them up momentarily. Great, so we've had a chance to write down these three statements. So let's see if we can plug in any key terms. So most Americans were afraid of course, we know that is communism because of Senator, his name was Joseph McCarthy, and he created something called the Red Scare. It was believed that if one country became communist, all the neighboring countries would become communist as well. And just like dominoes, once one falls, the rest fall as well. Harry Truman, he was president at the end of the Second World War, and this was because Franklin D. Roosevelt had passed away in 1945. So the Yalta and Potsdam conferences, these were the times where the Allied leaders, they met to discuss what was going to happen after Germany lost. So some points we need to know and we'll be writing down. So the Yalta conference took place in February of 1945. It took place between Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. So these are the leaders of the UK, the USSR, and the USA. It was agreed that Germany would be divided into 4 zones of occupation after they were defeated, and Stalin also agreed to enter the Asian War against Japan. Now, the Potsdam Conference, this was the second and the last time that these men are going to meet. Stalin did not like the Americans at all, and the Nazi Party would be banned after the victory by the Allies. So why does Stalin not like the Allies? Well, we've got a quote of something that Stalin said not long after the three big leaders actually met at the Yalta and Potsdam conferences. So here's what Stalin said. He said, "Perhaps you think just because we are the allies of the English that we have not forgotten who they are and who Churchill is. They find nothing sweeter than to trick their allies. Churchill, he's the kind who, if you don't watch him, will slip a small coin out of your pocket. Roosevelt's not like that. He dips in his hand only for the bigger coins." The 3 questions that we're going to write in our books is, what's Stalin's opinion of his allies? Why does Stalin believe this? And what events are going on that are going to influence Stalin's opinions? So keep the following points in mind. Churchill is the kind who, if you don't watch him, he'll slip a small coin out of your pocket. Roosevelt's not like that. He dips his hand only in for the bigger coins. Can you pause the video and answer those 3 questions in your notes? When you're finished, go ahead and hit play and we'll take them up together. Great, so we've had a chance to go ahead and answer these 3 questions. So Stalin's opinion of his allies, they're untrustworthy, they're sneaky, and they'll trick their allies. Why does Stalin believe that they're going to trick them? Well, the USA kept the atomic bomb a secret from the Soviet Union. As allies, you would expect that they would be sharing this information with each other. However, this was not the case. The USA did not want the technology of the atomic bomb falling into the hands of the Soviets for fear it might be used against them. And events that were going on around this time is the beginning of the Cold War. Both the USA and USSR have defeated Germany, and now they're realizing that they have fundamental differences about the way that they run their own country. And this goes back to the quote we learned earlier, where the enemy of my enemy is actually my friend. The USA and USSR are not friends, they just had a common enemy and were only willing to work together to defeat Germany, not because they wanted to work together. Now, this map is a perfect illustration of what's going to happen in the Cold War. And some of you might be aware of the phrase said by Winston Churchill, an iron curtain has descended on Europe. And this is where we have the green, these are capitalist ideas, and blue we have communist ideas. And we can see that they're meeting right down the middle of Germany and actually down the middle of Europe. And this is where Churchill said that an iron curtain is going to descend. On the left-hand side over here, we're going to have capitalist ideas, and on the right-hand side, we're going to have communist ideas. And if you've heard of the Berlin Wall, if you've heard of the Cold War, as well as looking at the policy of containment, this line that we've just drawn in red is going to divide Europe between capitalists on the left and communist ideas on the right. So long-term mistrust and causes of the Cold War. So the long-term mistrust between two very different countries was key to the Cold War going on for 45 years, and why both sides were so suspicious of each other. The USA was very worried about communism, and they didn't want communism to spread. And this is what led our President Truman to develop what he called the Truman Doctrine, or containment, essentially to stop the spread of communism wherever it may appear, and the domino theory, which said that if one country becomes communist, other countries will become communist as well. The USA had to therefore end its policy of isolationism, which arguably actually helped Hitler come to power by not intervening earlier. And this was decided to help stop the spread of communism wherever it might appear. The USA is now willing to go to war to stop communism wherever it might arise in Europe or around the world.